Hey everybody, it's Matt with Patriot Golf USA, and I'm bringing this to you for the YouTube guys out there. Now I've got a lot of people that have subscribed, and I really appreciate that. And I have not posted enough content for you guys to watch, and that's just bad on my part. I've been busy, which is no excuse, but I need to start doing more videos like that. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to show you my process of putting together. Alexa, pause. Putting together a set of Haywoods on some graphite shafts that I'm doing and some BB&F Ferrules. And I'll do my best to try to angle the camera and show you guys everything. You really probably don't need to see my face, so I will do what I can to show you the build station here. But anyway, what I've done is put a little bit of epoxy on the shaft into the head. I'll show you more as we go, but I'm just getting this one set right here. This goes all the way down. Pull that back out, get a little bit more epoxy on there, and I'll show you the full step here in a second. But these shafts and these heads and these ferrules really are kind of the best of the best, so it is pretty easy to do these builds without having any hiccups, because they fit together so tightly. I don't need, sorry about that. I don't need centering beads, and I don't need a bunch of stuff to make these things work. So you can see I've got some epoxy on there, a little bit on top. I always want to make sure we've got epoxy under the ferrule. Take the rag, just nothing special, just using paper towels. These though, these are wipes. These are Golfworks epoxy wipes, and I think they're worth every penny. Trying to get all the epoxy off of your ferrule and your club can be hard to do. With these things, it gets everything off every single time, and when you turn down the ferrules, there's no epoxy to turn down, because epoxy will tear your belts up. So it's worth buying those epoxy wipes and using them to get all the epoxy off there. And again, when I'm done, I'm really looking close. I want to make sure that I don't see any epoxy anywhere on the shaft. Let's get it off now, or actually on the hosel. Let's get it off now before it sets and it hardens. So always, when you're done, just take a look at your work. Look at the top, look at the bottom, look at everything. Don't just run through it and think that everything's going to be fine. So I'm going to line up the shaft, put it into my drying station, and now we'll move on to the next. So I'll show you what I do. So I've got an 8-iron head here. I've already honed this out. I've already cleaned it out with some solvent and a Q-tip and everything, and got all the junk and everything out of it. Got my epoxy worked up. So what I do, and some people don't do it, but this is what I do. I've always believed in the epoxies having a bond on the inside and outside. And so what I do is I put just a little bit of epoxy in here and just scrape it onto the inside of that hosel. Okay, just trying to make sure that everything is coated. And the thing about epoxy is it works best when it's the thinnest. So don't just jab a whole bunch of epoxy in here, because that's when it'll fail. Take my shaft, I roll just a little bit on there, just a tiny bit, as you can see, and then just slide her in there. Go around, in and out, and I'm just really making sure that our epoxy is all the way around our shaft. But when that happens, we know that the epoxy is good all the way on the inside of the hosel. Okay, take that out. Taking our ferrules, these BB&Fs, and these ones go on very easy. There are other ferrules where you have to be able to put them into something and jab them on. These ones just slide right on. And as I'm going, I'm twisting the whole time, because I want epoxy under that ferrule. That's what keeps the ferrule on. So I keep twisting the entire time, and then I'm left with that. Okay, then from there, I'm going to add a little more epoxy to the outside, and then go in and continue to turn. Okay, always turn so that we get complete coverage on that, and then down. Now with these are just a parallel tip. You don't need to slam these down. There's no reason to take this and slam it into the ground to try to get it to seat. All that does is move the ferrule up further. When this thing goes all the way down, you can feel it just bottom out. And when you feel it bottom out, then be done. Don't put any more effort into it. Take our wipe that down, get the majority of it off, and then come back to our wipe and just give it a good go through. And again, make sure everything is off of there, all the way up the shaft, all the way off of the ferrule. Get under the ferrule, and the most important thing is check your work. Look at it, just like a chef tasting their food before they put it out. You know, I know it sounds maybe weird, but that's how I think of it. Do the same thing. Check everything. Make sure that it's perfect before you let it set up overnight. And then when that happens, then you've got another issue that you have to try to fix. Get everything, all the epoxy completely off of that hosel. Everything. Because you're not going to turn down epoxy that's on the hosel. Alright, now we'll put it in our rack. And there we go. Move on to the next. Now we're on to the 7. Same thing. Take a little bit of epoxy. Get it down and in there. And just work it back and forth, up and down inside this hosel. Just trying to get as much epoxy on the inside of the hosel. Not a bunch of epoxy. We just want a coat of it. Pull that out. Take our shaft. Roll it just a little bit, and then again we're just nice and slow, go in and then turn it. Okay, spinning it like this, all these things are woven in a pattern, so it's almost like a drill bit. What that does is that moves a lot of the epoxy up the shaft, and you can see that we've got a little bit of a build up right there, and that's what we want. We want everything to be built up. That way we've got perfect coverage all the way through the shaft. Now when you take this out, be careful, because you will have some epoxy just like that on the bottom. Oh, I keep doing that. Now take the ferrule, and as you're going, twist the whole time. Make sure that you've got epoxy on the top side of that ferrule. If you don't, apply more epoxy. Ferrule creep is caused because 1, you didn't prep far enough, and 2, there's no epoxy under that ferrule. So make sure that you've got epoxy up underneath there. Now before you put more epoxy on, just push it down, and right there it just bottomed out. Okay, so now I'm going to add a little bit more, and nice and slow, just keep twisting. And what I'd like to see is just a little bit of epoxy come out between the top of the hosel and the ferrule. And when you do that, now we've got that bond between the hosel and the ferrule. So if this head isn't going to come off because it's epoxied, this ferrule damn well isn't going to slide back, or we're not going to get ferrule creep. Okay, if the head ain't going to fly off, the ferrule should never move. So, get the majority of it cleaned up, get our wipe, and then just wipe everything down. And you may be asking, you know, swing weights and all that kind of stuff. Everything was already weighed ahead of time, so I know what all the weights are. So that might be another video that we do that I didn't get into as far as pre-assembly of this, but we will do that in another video. But there we go. It's nice and clean. It's ready to go. Get everything twisted the way we want. When you twist it, make sure you do one more wipe down, because sometimes when you twist it, you'll get some epoxy will creep up under the ferrule. And there we go. Now we're on the 6-iron. Epoxy in there. Up and down. Around every side. Get your 6-iron shaft. Roll it. Nice and slow. Get it turned in and out, in and out. Make sure that we can feel that epoxy on the inside. And a lot of times you can hear it. That's what I listen for. As soon as I hear that, then I know I've got epoxy all the way around. Pull the head off nice and slow. Our ferrule. Put that on there. Spin the entire time. You can see we've got some epoxy above it, which is perfect. Take our head, push it all the way down right there, so now we're good. Now we're going to take some more epoxy. And again, nice and slow. Make sure that we got that buildup going all the way around, and then spin. And here's the other thing to keep in mind. The plastic that comes on these heads, leave it on there. When I first started this years and years and years and decades ago, I always got excited. So the first thing I did was pull the plastic off before I did the build. That led to sometimes getting epoxy or getting something onto the head that I didn't want when you're doing this. So just a little tip, leave the plastic on till the very end. I mean, the plastic is literally what the customer takes off. I don't even take it off myself. Leave it on there, let the customer take it off. After you turn down the ferrule, after you polish it, after you do everything, leave the plastic on there. Okay, and there we go. We'll take a look. See a little bit of right there. So again, always take a look at the hosel. Make sure you have all the epoxy off, because once the epoxy is on and it dries, it really ain't coming off unless you take a razor blade, and a lot of times you're going to leave marks if you do that. So there we go. Perfect. Okay, 2 more heads, and then you guys won't be bored with this anymore. But even like right now, I can feel a little bit of epoxy on my hands, and so that's a really good reason why to make sure the plastic stays on. And if you do, wipe it off. Or actually, I'm going to go over to the sink and wash my hands real quick. Even though I've got plastic on here, I don't want to touch anything with this epoxy on my hands, on the shaft, anything like that, because when you do, it'll be permanent. Give me 1 second. Okay, there we go. Keep your hands clean. Customers don't want to see fingerprints. All right, so we take a little bit of epoxy in here, go around, up and down. That shaft, roll her in. And again, just working this in and out, spin around. And here's one thing you'll notice. See how much of the shaft that I have prepped? Now, I've done this long enough to know kind of how much to prep up the shaft, but if you want to know, put the head on the shaft, take your ferrule, line it up, and then just go just a hair under what the ferrule is going to be. We want all this to bond to the ferrule. If we only prep to the very top of this hosel, that ferrule's got nothing to stick to. Ferrule is, you know, even though it's epoxy, plastic and this finish on shafts, they don't bond. So that ferrule is going to creep on you, and that's called ferrule creep. So do yourself a favor, be professional. Get that thing prepped all the way up to the top. It makes the ferrule slide on a lot easier too whenever it's prepped, because there's not as much paint on there. So then as you go, we're sliding, we're twisting, and there we go. Just keep on going till we're around there. Get this, push up, it bottomed out. I don't need to slam it down on the ground. I don't need to force it anymore. It's as far as it's gonna go. We're gonna add a little more epoxy, because in the end I want just a little bit of that epoxy to be at the very top of that ferrule. And there we go. You can see kind of just a nice light little coat of epoxy all the way around. Clean it up. Clean it up. Flip it over. Take our Goo Gone stuff, and I do have actually a spray bottle of that, so I can spray it down to get it a little wetter, because this stuff does dry out pretty quick. And keep going with this stuff. I love the Golfworks epoxy clean. It does such a really good job. Again, twist, turn, and look. Keep paying attention to your club. Don't not pay attention to it. It's real easy to do this and then all of a sudden see a tiny little spot of epoxy just pop up that you didn't see. So take your time, make sure it's completely clean. Then come tomorrow when I turn these down, there's no extra work to do, and these things turn out perfect. Okay, last one coming up. Got the old 4-iron. So again, get some epoxy in there. Round, around, round. Scrape the sides. Okay, it's all the way around. There's something right there. Oh, there's nothing. Coat it just a little bit. Okay, get in there, turn it, twist, 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 twist. There's that sound. Get that little ledge of epoxy right there. A little ledge. Now we take our ferrules, put that on there, and then just keep pushing and twisting and turning. Now all of a sudden we've got epoxy completely under that ferrule and then up on top. Once you get to the top and you get that far, then you're done. Okay, a little more epoxy. And as we're going, you see it just turns in there nicely. In this one here, I pushed the ferrule just a little bit too far. In this particular case, it don't matter because I can push that ferrule all the way back up. Most ferrules fit very, very tight, like too tight. So I just pushed that one up. Now I'm going to push it back down and we're good to go. Most ferrules, and that'll be another video I need to do, is ferrule installation, because ferrules can be tricky. A lot of times you use heat, boiling water. I've used everything. Most ferrules do not go on this easy at all. But I will do another video soon to show you how to put ferrules on your clubs, because ferrules can be frustrating because they really are different sizes. You have parallel tip, you have taper tip, you have stuff that are collared, not collared, and really you just have to know which ferrule to put on. I really don't use tapered ferrules because with the right prep, a parallel ferrule, which is 370, just slides onto a taper tip shaft perfectly, and there's enough room, I guess, to have to leave the epoxy under that ferrule where it's not going to move. So I've completely gone away from taper ferrules. They don't really serve a purpose other than being more difficult to put on. So anyway, there we are on the last one. We got everything. There we are, lined back up. Once we line up, do one more quick little touch up. And there we are. We're all set. So I'll show you this. So I've got them all lined up right here. Got them, let's go this way. It's hard to see. Got all the heads lined up with the shafts. Got everything sitting. So we're going to let this sit until tomorrow. It's a 24-hour epoxy. In about 6-7 hours, it'll gel to where it ain't going to move. But by the time I come in tomorrow, I can take these, put them on the machine to turn the ferrules. Then we will, from there, adjust the loft and lies. Once the loft and lies are done, I will cut them to length, put the grips on, and then they're ready for the customer. All right, everybody, I hope this was informative. We're 22 minutes, which I think is pretty typical for a YouTube video. I know when I watch YouTube videos, they last forever. But I think that's the whole point of a YouTube video, is to get informed, and you can't get informed by watching a 30-second commercial. So hopefully this was something you guys found informative. Please, if you're watching this for the first time, subscribe, do whatever you can. Go to my webpage, go to my site, and just keep following. I'm going to try to do more and more of this every single day. I do have a full build shop. I do have a full service repair shop, fittings, lessons, everything all day long. So I'll do my best to continue to try to video everything that I can so that you can get information. I got a lot of my information over the years by watching videos and seeing what people do. And some of it stuck. Some of it just made sense to me. And it's what I do and teach today because of the videos I watch. So again, subscribe to this page and watch this page. And if you guys have any questions, or if you want a video done on something specific, please let me know. I don't think there's really anything that I don't do every couple of days that you wouldn't find informative. If you want me to do something very specific, let me know. I'm sure I'm probably doing that at some point of the day. So hope everyone has a great day. God bless. Take care. And we'll see you on the next video. Thanks.